jam-packed in for today.
Yeah.
Right? So
What?
let's chit chat. Let's do our chit chat before we get started. What we're going to talk about tonight, and don't leave, because what we're talking about are circumstances in which, like sometimes things can be difficult, right? Difficult to say, difficult to talk about. And so we're going to give you some tips and some phrases and hopefully spark your direct communication center in your mind for how to say things and what circumstances you might want to say these things in. So we're going to talk about that. But first, let's chit chat. One of the things that I wanted to chit chat about. Do you know what I want to chit chat about?
No, I have no idea.
Our TV show, Life Talk on Grace Awakening Network.
Nice.
I'm so excited about it because remember what's happening on there?
On Grace Awakening Network?
Uh-huh.
I know. Oh, I'm not sure. There's a couple things I'm thinking of, so I'm not sure exactly which one.
That it's expanding.
Okay. I just wasn't sure which one you were talking about because I knew there was a couple things. It's expanding.
Yes, it is. And it is very exciting that is happening. A lot of what they're doing is the message is just really getting out there. Remember, this is the first 24/7 Grace channel. So at all times, it just talks about 24/7 Grace. And that is such a freeing message. So in that, what I want everybody to do is, if you have any topics that you think you would like to see us do, it's a 28-minute episode. And if you have any ideas about things that you would like to see for Grace, and really what we do is we talk about life topics. So let me pull this up real quick. I hadn't planned on doing this, but I'm going to pull up what I'll say. This is kind of what a description kind of what the program is that we do. Join the conversation. Life Talk explores how the transformative power of God's grace enriches our relationships, encourages personal growth, and provides real solutions to all life's challenges. So on that, anything that you would like to see us talk about, we need ideas for episodes that would be helpful for people, for all the people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was thinking recently about doing one on boundaries. You know, a lot of, when you begin to distill it down, a lot of problems in your life come from lack of boundaries. And so in that lack of boundaries, you don't know where something begins and where something ends. And so I thought about us doing one on that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And I've thought about us doing more like, maybe even interviews, things like that. And so, but where it's expanding is where it's going to be on Apple TV now. It's going to be accessible through that way. I think, does Android have a...
I thought you said Android and then...
There's the Amazon Fire? Fire, something like that.
The Fire Stick.
The Fire Stick. Is it the Fire?
It's Amazon. I believe that does... It's either Amazon or... It's not Kindle. There's a Kindle Fire tablet. That's where I get confused. But I believe it is Amazon.
This program's accessible through Amazon. So
nice.
I forget what it's called. Fire,
yes.
Something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm getting the details. But the point is that it is going to be expanding. And as it expands, there's going to be a larger and larger audience. And so we're really excited about it. And we're really excited to be a part of it and really kind of like on the ground floor of it. And so really, really, really very excited about that. What do you think about all that?
I'm excited. I can't wait. It's just going to get out there more and more, and the message is going to get to more and more people. And I think it's exciting to see that it's expanding and growing the way that it is.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And for us to be a part of that and, just be runners in the kingdom for something like that.
Yeah.
So super stoked about that. Another thing I want to talk about, I want to talk a little bit about because of, well, to back up, I want to talk about a little bit about what we do here. Because as we start to plan for the next year, I know we're planning for the next year. We're already in next year.
Yeah.
So it just makes me so excited about what we do here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, we always say it's, we are the church, but are we a church? We're not really a church. Are we a counseling center? Yes, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
We do so many different things that I'm just super excited. And, I was talking with somebody earlier today and really just talking about how we help people pivot from worldly kingdom to kingdom thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge because I would say a lot of times people don't know how to live. And, so it's not just psychology, it's not just Bible, but it's really like, how do you apply spiritual principles to your life? Because, obviously the Bible is the source for spiritual principles, but then like a lot of people I think really struggle in taking that and moving it into how to do that. Like, what does that look like practically in people's lives? And we just strongly believe in doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, sorry. So, our dogs are here. They're funny. So, in the way to apply spiritual principles to your life, I think people really struggle, and I think that's where our hearts are to help people apply the kingdom principles into their life in a way that really does set them free and really does break generational curses and break bondages in people's lives. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's amazing what happens in people's lives when they plug in and they start to grow and learn, and everything that just gets implemented. You just see freedom like in their lives in ways that I think that they haven't been able to achieve it before or able to find before.
Yes. We haven't said it in a while, but a lot of what we do here is we're a hospital for the hurting and a training ground for spiritual warriors. And because how are you going to apply effectively principles to your spiritual principles to your life, biblical principles to your life, if you are limited by your wounds and your hurts? So we believe in a combination of doing these things, because how can you apply something if you are in fear? How can you apply something if you are anxious? How can you live if you are in such bondage? And so I'm excited about the new year and all that we have coming up. Again, I think we'll definitely be expanding with the Grace Awakening Network. We will definitely, we have some exciting ideas for workshops. We have some exciting ideas for weekend intensives.
Yes.
For some, we love to get a lot of time spent in a row with the people. Because when we do that, what we see, what happens is it breaks down people's barriers. And when you're here for an extended period of time, you don't have a way to build those right back up. How we connect with people, each form is important. But what we love about intensives is, man, you don't have a time to build your walls back up.
That's right.
You just got to be there, and you got to be raw, and you got to be raw for an extended period of time. We'll be doing more groups, which we really love, because it's really effective in putting a group, and usually our groups are hand selected. Sometimes we'll put feelers out, but we have people in mind that it's like an invitation, but we're going to look at different ways that we can do that so we can facilitate more people. But it's usually it's like about 6 people and coming together to study a specific subject. Like, we could have a codependency group, we could have a boundaries group, we could have a grieving group, we could have different types of groups. And in there, what's interesting to me is it never just is that one topic. like everything kind of touches, if you noticed in your life. Like if you try to deal with people pleasing, then other things pop.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, there's people pleasing, and then there's that, and there's so much. Gotta put my phone in do not disturb mode. At least I had the ringer off. And so in that, when you think about all that we have to do this next year, I'm just so excited.
Yeah, it's
with
gonna
all
be
of
awesome.
it, and just many, many, many other things that we just, I don't know. It's neat because each year the Lord just seems to hone in and laser in on us helping people. And I love that. What about you?
I do. I love it. I love
Yeah.
what we do. I love what we bring and what it does for people's lives. I think it's amazing.
Really, this year we went almost all online. Like, and being able to communicate to people. We want to service the people that are here, and we do have our roundtable. And if you're here locally, roundtable first and third Sundays of the month, and that's really fun. Where it doesn't matter what can't even talk. What denomination you are, it doesn't matter what everybody just kind of comes together, and we can learn and grow together, and that's exciting. And let's see what else. Anything else we're doing this next year?
I think that's pretty much it. It's going to be fun. We've got a lot going on, a lot of things moving around, and like in a good way, not really changing much, but just going more online and going after groups and all the things you mentioned. I can't think of anything else. I'm excited.
Well, it'll be fun. Let's see what else for chit chat. We had fun yesterday.
Yes, we
kind of
did.
played hooky yesterday.
That's true. That is
I
true.
did. I played hooky. Well, not the whole day, but partially in the day.
Yeah.
And you played for a good bit of the day
Yeah.
too. My daughter-in-law was in town, and so it was really fun to go spend time with her. So, yep. Kind of breeze in, breeze out. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Aw, we got a lot of good things going on.
I know. So what do you have on your radar for chit chat?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I don't know if I have anything to throw in there and add. I mean, I feel like we really kind of have worked on the same stuff recently, just... I don't know. I don't have nothing to add. I'm like scrambling.
It's because you had so much fun yesterday.
I did. I had fun, and I don't know. I've been excited about everything we're doing here and just working away. And I'm trying to think. My dad's back in town. Yeah, I don't really have anything to throw in there. Just excited about everything we're talking about.
Well, then let's get on to business. Growing up to bend down. We've been talking about that, growing up kingdom style. And when we grow up to bend down. And I think one of the best ways that we have to grow up is we have to learn better communication skills. And in learning better communication skills, it really does take practice. I think, especially in the Christian community, what happens? We think we can't say things. We think we have to say yes to everything. We think we have to be doormats. And if not that, then we think that we can't express anger if we get upset or we get mad. Like, we really do think we end up being either angry and bitter or doormats. And there's so much in between. I promise you. A lot of us didn't grow up with healthy models for communication. So what do we do? Let's learn how to communicate a little bit healthier. I wanted to make a couple points here before we go into some examples. But in that, I'll say one of the, I think, critical is you have to know what you want. Like, I think a lot of us we back into communication backwards. Like, we try to figure out what everybody else wants, and then from that we try to figure out what we want. I think you definitely 100% have to be able to say, you know what, this is what I want. If you don't know yourself, how are you going to know other people? And if you don't know yourself, then you cannot at all be yourself. how are you going to be yourself if you don't know yourself? And so there's a lot of behaviors that come out when people don't know themselves, when they're not genuine to themselves. There's a lot of just toxic behavior that comes out with that. And so first thing is to know yourself. In order to communicate directly, you have to know who you are, what you want, what you don't want. Another thing that I would say in grown-up communication is be proactive, not reactive. A lot of times we're behind the 8 ball and we just react to everything that life has for us. And instead of like just kind of guiding our ships, we're just like in the back of the ship being like, we'll see where the ship goes. We'll see what happens. And then we get mad because what we want to happen doesn't happen. Yeah. So also I would say is, I don't want you to use passive communication. Like, learn how to do assertive communication using a lot of, it's not that you can't ever say you, but watch how you say you when you're asking about somebody. But the point is ask for what you need. Ask for what you want to happen. If there's something that happens, then anytime you lodge a complaint, also suggest a solution to it. When we have grown-up communication, like, it's important to be assertive and talking about what you need, what you want. And I'll say, I didn't put this one down, but another thing that's really important is let other people be responsible for their communication. You're not the figure it out police. You know, I know that sounds weird for a lot of what we do. We help people figure things out, right? But in general life communication, what do? You don't have to figure it out for everybody. Let somebody struggle. Let somebody be a little bit upset. Can you handle people being upset? Like a lot of times in your personal life, it isn't work. You're not having to work on a task. You're not having to do something. So I think a lot of times people take a work mentality home or take a work mentality to their personal lives where, like, when you come to work, everybody has to be professional, right? Everybody has to be, of all the places, like, well, I say that, but in your private life, you have to be direct, but in your professional life, you have to be direct too. But I think a lot of people just miss it in their communication. So I want you to understand what you want, and you're not responsible for saving the world.
Right.
Go home and take a day off. You're okay. I say that in the way that you're not everybody's professional problem solver, nor should you anoint yourself to be that person in somebody's life. Here at the ministry, like I said, what do? We help people learn how to solve problems.
Yes.
We help stuck people get unstuck. And in that, like, we don't go home and do that in our personal lives.
No.
We don't. Yesterday when we had fun, what did we do?
We had fun.
Did we solve 0 problems? 0. We solved 0 problems yesterday.
That's
we
right.
just had fun.
Yep.
And enjoyed the company that we were around.
Yep.
And in doing that, like, don't take it on yourself. I can't stress that enough. I just see people every day taking on what I hate to say their work home. It's our work. That's what we do, and take it home. And don't take it home. But also let people fail. Let people be responsible for themselves. You don't have to catch everybody that falls. I'm not talking about being uncaring and unfeeling, but I think that's huge in the Christian community. It's called, like codependency. It's called being an enabler, things like that. If you allow people to fail, if you allow people to figure it out for themselves, then they get the lesson. They get the wisdom from that. Yeah. Sometimes we have professional enablers, don't we?
Oh my goodness. Like big time. Big time.
And this is what I would really encourage you to think about it, because I mean, people don't really think about what enabling it is, but what enabling is you break people's wings.
Yep.
Like you steal their lesson. Now hear me, it's a 2 people cycle. Like somebody has to be like, here, take all my responsibility. And then somebody has to say, yes, I'm going to take all that responsibility. but don't do it. Don't fall for it.
Yeah.
One of the things, I'm going to just talk about it now
Okay.
instead of later. One of the things is like if you have somebody that is shopping for an opinion, and remember, sometimes you get opinion shoppers. And what do you think about this? What do you think? And basically the person, for lack of a better way to say it, I don't mean this in a negative way, but when somebody's just playing stupid, well, what do I do? Well, we've probably told you 6,000 times, a suggestion or something like that. But when people do that, why do people play dumb?
Because then they don't have to take responsibility.
Yeah. And hear me. We're not calling anybody dumb, because nobody is dumb. Like if somebody truly didn't understand if they didn't understand it, then that's one thing.
Yeah.
But we see people like to be like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about that. But that's not really what that is. Rocco's digging a hole in that chair over there. He's like, let me find my comfy spot. But it really is a defense mechanism to avoid responsibility. And there's always somebody willing to take up that responsibility. Oh, I'll tell you how to do that. I'll tell you how to run your life. And it's one thing to teach somebody how to do something differently. Kind of like, let's teach people how to fish. We don't want to fish for people. Do you want to
Right.
fish for people?
Nope.
We want to teach people how to fish, because
Right.
when you teach people how to fish, then they can repeat that. And not only repeat it, guess what? It gets to be a ripple effect through the kingdom. The stronger you are, the stronger the people around you will become. The stronger the people around other people will become. And it does become like a ripple effect. So to be able to have direct communication, to be able to be uncomfortable, remember we've talked about this a lot in this series, is can you let people be uncomfortable? That's hard for most people to do. The number one person that is hard to let be uncomfortable is who?
Yourself.
That's right. Ding, 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 ding. It is. People think they're going to die if they become uncomfortable. No, you will not die if you become uncomfortable. You will be uncomfortable, but in that, what's going to happen?
You will survive. You will make it.
I wish we could sing that. We need that. We need our little button to play our little sounds that
Yes.
you will survive.
I will survive.
That.
Yep. You will.
You will.
It will.
You will grow.
It will pass. You will grow. You'll get stronger. You'll learn the lesson. You'll take the next step.
Yes. And hear me. I'm not trying to be dismissive of anybody in pain. I've been in pain. You've been in pain. Everybody at multiple points in their life just feels gutted.
Yeah.
But it makes me mad because the enemy somehow sells us this story that we can't make it through hard times.
Right.
And that's really what I'm talking about. Like, understand that you can make it through tough times, but it'll be uncomfortable. And I would say one of the pivotal things about is learning great direct communication skills. Because if you don't have direct communication skills, man, it just makes it really, really rough. And a lot goes into that, knowing yourself. Why do we talk about communication so much? Because it's huge. It really is. We wrote down I just wrote down some statements, and I'd like for us to kind of talk about those, like, when would that kind of be the time to say that?
Okay.
I would rather address this myself with Jackie. A situation where that might apply is kind of like triangulation, right? Like if somebody's like, oh my God, you know what so-and-so, oh my God, so-and-so said this about you. I'm going to go tell them that that's not okay. No. I would rather address this myself with Jackie. Right? Like, no, like you don't need anybody to go and to fight your battles. You don't want to encourage remove yourself from the situation. If you're that other person and somebody comes to you, oh my gosh, Christine, Christina, blah, 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 blah. And you can remove yourself. What would you say in that instance? It doesn't sound like this. I'm involved in this.
Yeah. I don't really feel like I have a place in this.
Yeah.
It's not really, it doesn't really include me.
Everything somebody brings to you doesn't require you to hop in. And I think that's important because there's many different ways, whether people are trying to hop in on an issue, or whether, just however it begins to happen, you can say, look, if somebody comes to me and tries to be a go-between, I'm probably going to say, you know what, I'd rather talk to them directly myself. Thank you. And the other way is if they try to pull you in, you're like, I think that's between the two of you.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to remove myself for simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of he said, she said, hearsay, things like that. So I like that one. That's an easy way. And hear me, like, it's not a rude thing to say that. When you start communicating directly, you will feel
uncomfortable
and rude.
Yeah.
You will feel uncomfortable and rude in that. Why?
Yep.
Because you're just going to begin to communicate in a way where you used to be like, I don't know, whatever, you have to get more direct with your communication. Another thing, I love this phrase. Again, we're just introducing phrases. Make the phrase your own, but it's just an idea of how to respond to something. What you describe doesn't work for me. That's powerful.
Yep.
I'm going to say that again.
That's good.
What you described doesn't work for me. A lot of times people will come up and they will describe what works for them. And for you just to say, I'm sorry, what you described won't work for me.
Yep. Just doesn't fit.
No, you don't have to give an explanation. You don't have to bring your 6 grandmas into it. You don't have to. You don't have 6. I guess some people could have 6 grandmas, but you don't. The less that you say, often in times with direct communication, it makes it easier. Why? Because then there's not a lot of extraneous information in it. It's just very simply, I'm sorry, that won't work for me. Now they can come back and they say, well, ideally if it's communication, and we're going to talk about this at the very end, if it's a dialogue, if it's 2 people, if it's a conversation, then it's going to go back and forth. But a lot of times people don't want to have a conversation. And we've talked about that before. You got to first recognize, is this communication or is somebody trying to change my mind? Because it's a whole different route if somebody's trying to change your mind. Like an instance of this, if we're saying, and I would be like, oh, that doesn't work for me. Okay. Her response would be what?
Okay, well, let's see what we can figure out so we can try to make this fit if we can.
Yes. And that's a dialogue. That's conversation. But most people want to just push their agenda. Most people come into a communication or a dialogue and it's false. First, you got to figure out if you're in a back and forth communication in a positive way. Are we trying to see what works for both of us? We were talking earlier in the afternoon about trying to figure out like this day or this day or this day. And we went back for several texts just trying to figure out, because I want to always take care of you. You want to take care of me. So just finding what works best for us.
Yeah.
And in that, it just becomes important to be able to say, and understand, like, is this somebody that's trying to work with me? Or is this somebody who's manipulating me? Is this somebody that's gaslighting me? Is this, all that is important to figure out, because in direct communication, what is the ask? What is the ask? And if somebody's not asking, if somebody's kind of telling you what you need to do and how you need to do it and how you feel and how you think, that's not communication.
No, that's just control.
Yes. Control, manipulation, and gaslighting. And so you have to be able to begin to recognize. And the beautiful thing about direct communication, the more that you learn about direct communication, you see the gaslighting, the manipulation, the control. You see all those tactics very easily, because communication is never simple. Do you ever kind of want to, if you come away from a conversation wanting to stab yourself in the eyeball, like that means what?
Well, nothing good.
Nothing. And not that, conflict resolution sometimes can't feel frustrating, But it's like, if you are involved in conversations that never come to a solution, you're not having a conversation. You're either not listening, the other person's not trying. Like, there's a multitude of reasons why that happens, but understand that's not direct communication.
Right.
That's not growing up kingdom style conversations.
Yeah.
Another one, I want to discuss the subject with you, just not right now. I want to finish the subject I brought up first. This is huge. A lot of times in conflicts or arguments or fighting, people will bring up 99 things that they want to talk about as a distraction, as a like, oh, let me throw a bone in this area, so that it never, what you bring up never gets addressed or talked about. And this is a huge thing in relationships. It really, really is. In that, like, as soon as somebody brings something uncomfortable, oh, let me change the subject. Let me talk about the weather. Let me do this. Let me do that. Yeah. And so it is okay to say, hey, I love that you brought that up, and I would definitely want to talk to you about it. I just want to bring up the subject that I brought up first.
Right.
That I want to talk about that and resolve that before we move on to this. Because the truth is, you can only resolve one thing at a time. And people think that they can have multiple storylines going at one time, and you're not going to come to a solution. Each one will be a distraction to the other and be competing and be at odds. You can't discuss one thing one time, and then you can get resolution. And it'll be shocking sometimes with, when you work with couples, you're like, let's just use this topic as and just pick out anything that they're arguing over. It could be like, I wanted you to buy Cheerios and you bought Fruity Pebbles, something like that. And people will be like, well, that's not really a big thing. No, but let's practice over something that isn't so heated. And you would be shocked at how hard it is for people to stay on task until they get something resolved.
Yep.
Because what happens is people get triggered and somebody says something and it brings up a whole bunch of baggage. And then we're talking about the 1,000 suitcases you just brought up.
Yeah.
And guess what happens?
It doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't.
Except for more mad, more anger.
Everybody wants to beat their head on a wall because it's frustrating, because there's no, and hear me, there's no solution, but it takes discipline to stay on the same road until you come to a solution. But it's no fun, especially if you like chaos.
Yeah.
Then we got to fight, then we got to fight about 5,000 million different things.
Yep.
But keeping coming back and help police each other, like if you're trying to get to a solution with something, then it's important. And just remember, if you've taken the time to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something, and then that is not what y'all are talking about, redirect the conversation. If you have a partner, if you're having communication with somebody who wants to communicate and wants to help solve, then it goes very well. If you want somebody that just wants to fight, or if you want somebody that just wants to bring up every little thing and avoid, if you have an avoidance person, a person who is avoiding talking about it, or it just is uncomfortable and shuts down, you're not going to resolve it.
Right. It's just going to go in circles.
And that's not fun for anybody.
No.
But it's important that you take note, if you're going to grow up in your communication, you're going to have to learn how to hear uncomfortable things from people. One thing I didn't put in here, and maybe this is, I'm going to put this one in here before I forget about it, but it's, thank you for your feedback. Like a lot of times people will say uncomfortable things, like say you are discussing something that's uncomfortable, and how do you respond? At some point you're going to get criticized, and not all criticism comes from a negative place or comes from a bad place. Somebody's going to say something and you're going to like, ooh, I don't want to be that person. And instead of trying to talk them out of it and instead of trying to manipulate the conversation, just say, you know what? Wow, that's hard to hear, but I really appreciate your feedback because that's not how I would want to come across. But that takes maturity. It takes a skill to be able to communicate that way, right?
Yeah. Instead of letting your wounds run the conversation, you gotta kind of put those to the side and be present.
You're like, no, I'm not. No, I didn't. That's the lie. Remember when you did this? Like, that's frequently how you hear conversations. You have to remember, you know what? There are two realities. If you have two people in a conversation, there are two realities. And my reality feels real. Your reality feels real. And both of them are completely valid.
Right.
And to be able to describe what's going on in your world doesn't make it truth. But it makes it, if you care about the person, then it makes it important, right?
Yes.
And so you want to say that, like, let's practice saying that. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. I appreciate, don't you want to know how other people view you? I'm not talking about like people who don't care about you and they gaslight you and like you know, they're just projecting onto you. I'm talking about in your close relationships. Take constructive feedback. It's very, very, very important. And remember, my original one with this is just stay on point. If you make a commitment, if we're going to talk about this, it's kind of like, have you ever been to a meeting? Like a business meeting, and they talk about everything but solve nothing. And then the next one, they don't solve it again. And the next, they don't solve it. It's fine if it's like a brainstorming or an abstract thing. You know, like a lot of times here we'll brainstorm. It's like, okay, what do we want to do next year? And, you know, that might be a conversation that we have over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things have to be finessed out and teased out. And like, you have to have repeat conversations that's like, okay, you know, Lord, what do you want in this? And that's fine. But to never, ever solve anything, then you have to begin to ask yourself, okay, do I just like drama? Do I just like chaos? Do I just like conflict? And usually what people do is they blame it on their partners, right? And just look at you. If you're, you know, I always tell people this all the time. If somebody tries to argue, it takes two people to argue. I'm just saying, it takes two people to have an argument.
Yep.
Because you can easily say something like, you know, I'd like to discuss that, but come back, you know, we can come back to that after we solve this. Or you can begin to say things like, you know what, this conversation, I don't feel like we're making progress in it. And I feel like we're getting a little bit heated. Maybe we need to put this on the shelf and let's make a commitment to come back in 24 hours and take another try at it. There's no shame in being triggered. There's no shame in it being frustrating, but recognize your capacity for having that conversation and honor your word. If you're going to come back and discuss it, come back and discuss it. Don't make somebody have to hunt you down. Don't, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times people are like, let's talk about that later. And then it never comes up. Even if you are an avoidant person, then open up your phone and set an alarm that says, talk to so-and-so about such and such thing at such and such time, you know? And I talk to people about even come back, you know, if you don't have an answer, then come back and re-up. You know what? I know that I said that I would check back in 24 hours. I'm still processing it, and I'd kindly ask for another 24 hours. Okay.
Yep.
Like, grow up. We're talking about grown-up direct communication.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It hurts. It's going to hurt your feelings. And even when you get used to it, it hurts your feelings because you just can't throw a temper tantrum and whine and cry and not solve a problem. Like grown-ups, I hate to say that, kingdom style, do what? You have to come back to things and you get to solve things. But the more that you get used to that, that'll be your way of life. And it'll feel so, so much better. Let's see. I'm not sure what that sound is.
Do you want me to check?
No. We'll figure it out later. It says there's a sound here. We don't know what it is. I'm just like, what equipment is buzzing right now? I will not continue discussing this matter. You don't have to argue with somebody. A lot of times people think you don't have to answer every question somebody asks you. And hear me, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking to somebody who's just trying to argue with you. And if somebody's trying to argue with you, what can you say?
I will not continue discussing this matter.
You don't have to call somebody a bleepity bleep bleep bleep. You don't have to just be like train yourself. When you get into a conversation, you are responsible for regulating your own self. And if you can't handle your own regulation in that moment, if you feel yourself elevating, escalating, get out of the conversation. I will not continue discussing this matter. And if it's somebody that's arguing, just get out like that. If it's somebody that you have an ongoing personal relationship with, and it's really just like, in that moment, it's just getting a little bit heated, or you're just a little triggered, say, look, I want to stay in this conversation. I'm having a little trouble regulating me. And I know it sounds weird to say those words, but grow up, people. Like, take responsibility for your own behavior. Nobody's responsible for my frustration or my anger but me. So be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm not able to talk to you in a way right now that I would want to talk to you. So I need to just take a minute. Like, not, you're making me bleeping mad, like, no, like, what are we saying? Grow up.
Yep.
And it's hard. It is. I will not continue discussing this matter with you. Or, like I said, if you're actually in an actual conversation with somebody who's being respectful, just say, like, wow, I gotta tap out for 10 minutes and I'll be back. Or, hey, this is I need to process. It's your responsibility to understand when you're at your limit. You know what I mean? All of us have an information overload, and if you hit information overload, don't keep having a conversation, because I find that disrespectful, right? Like, it's disrespectful. If you've hit information overload, you should be able to say to the other person, I want to hear everything that you're saying. My brain has shut down.
Yeah.
And I can absorb no more.
Right.
And that's the grown-up thing to say. It's not the rude thing to say. What's rude is to continue to listen an hour after and you've heard none of what they've said and and not been able to process.
Yeah.
That to me is disrespectful.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I think when somebody starts talking, a good thing to ask is, do you want to vent, or do you want input on a solution? Like, are you in solution mode, or you just need to blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And because if somebody's upset, then I think it's the other person's, it's just smart for the other person to say, hey, do you want me just to listen, or do you want a suggestion? Nothing. Sometimes if we're aware, we will say things like, hey, I just need to vent. Or, hey, I need to vent for a few minutes, but then I'm looking for a solution. Like, ideally you would be able to let the person know what you want. But if that person is upset, if that person is, has a lot going on, and you're the one that's the saner one at the moment, then you ask. There's nothing worse than if you're just trying to vent and somebody's trying to give you a solution.
Yeah.
Do you want to vent, or do you want an answer? A solution. I hate to say an answer, a solution, an input for that. How many times, it's frustrating when that happens, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was talking about this the other day to somebody. We were talking about a situation, and I said, well, sometimes if I'm not looking for an answer, I'll just say, I am not looking for a solution here.
I'm not trying to fix this.
I need to get it out.
I'm trying to be mad about it.
Yeah. I'll calm down, and I will and sometimes I'll do that, and then I'll be like, maybe the next day come back and be like, okay, I know we talked about that. Now I am looking for input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just want to be mad. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But as a grown-up person, be aware of what it goes back to. What are your needs? I just need to be mad for a minute.
Right.
I don't need you to fix me. I don't need you to change my life. I just need to be mad for a minute.
Right.
Okay.
Well, then the other person knows how to show up for you.
Yes.
They're aware of, okay, I'm put my advice box away
Here.
and I'm just listening and I'm just going to be supportive. And we'll take them down, Because you both have an understanding in the moment that
Yes.
we're just venting. You're just getting it out. And then when you're ready for a solution, you can come back to the table if you want to.
Yeah. And it really is, it helps clear up a lot if you know what you want and you clearly communicate what you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to be heard. Sometimes you just want, and sometimes you just want somebody to hate somebody with you.
Yeah.
I know. Don't text. Don't make a comment about that. I'm not talking about like you're going to live there and die there
Right.
at that place, but
Just in that moment.
In that moment.
Yeah.
be like, yeah, man, they did you dirty.
Yeah.
Like you can, ideally, you have the type of friendships that you can just say that with because you know that they're not going to camp out and live there for the rest of their life. Let them be a little mad.
Yeah.
Let them be a little upset. If you can't, that really points to like, hey, what's going on with you? It's not like you're at work and trying to do that stuff. You know what I mean? And even at work, give a little bit of grace. So think about these things. What kind of mode are they in?
Yeah. And if you're not sure, I think one thing to ask is, how can I support you? What do you need from me? What do you want to do? And then
Who do I need to kill?
yeah, those kind of answers
Kidding.
those questions I think will help you kind of determine, because they'll be like, I don't know, I just want to complain or whatever. And okay, then we know what it is they're looking for.
Yeah. And remember, like in a relationship, both people have to have investment in solving things. Ideally, the person that is least sane at the moment, like they have a person that has got their back in
Yes.
that. I mean, and that's important. Like grace in a relationship is hugely important. So I would say that. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, I would say this one. What are you going to do about that? And that's a you statement, and it's an intentionally you statement, because a lot of times people, I'd say professional advice seekers, there's some people that don't want a solution. They just want to complain about the same problem, the exact same problem over and over again. I'm not talking about healing. Everybody always is like, I hate talking about the same thing. No, if you're actively working on it and healing it, that's a completely different thing. But if you find yourself saying the same thing to the same person and they are not working on it, they are just doing, that definition of insanity.
Living on that wheel.
Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. No. A good thing to come back and to say to people is, well, what are you going to do about that? What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, what do you want to do about that? So what I'm hearing is you just want to be mad about that. No, because people will be like, no, I want a solution. I want to do this different. But then when you offer a different way to do it, what do they say?
Well, they're not really looking. They give you all the reasons why they can't do it that way. All the excuses as why that would never work.
That one would, yeah. Because,
think about that for a second. Oh, yeah.
But it is, they'll say, like, you'll say, well, what about this? No. Well, what about this? No. What
You
about
don't
this?
understand.
No.
You don't understand.
That would never work. Well, what would work? And I don't know. But are you open to trying something different? Yeah. No, you're not. No, you're not.
No.
And so kind of putting the ball back in their court. Sometimes you want to, do it in a polite way, but say, well, what are you going to do about that? I don't know. Because as soon as they get to a surrendered point, then you can actually have a conversation about it. Then you can have, as long as somebody is, they know what they're going to do, but they're pretending like they don't. And and it's okay. Like I said, if somebody just wants to vent and be mad, but if you have somebody in your life that's like, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job. And really your friendship is getting to a point where it's like, I can't hear that one more time without wanting to be ill. To be able to say to them, something like, well, what do you want to do about that? Because what I hear is this keeps coming up, like almost on a daily basis now. And it seems to me you don't want to do anything about it. Like that, eventually, like people don't mind to listen to you vent, But if you're venting about the same thing again and again and again, and you don't want to solve your problem, honestly, then people don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Or what I also see is the problem is something that they have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
Like the solution they want is something that is 100% out of their control, and they're never going to get the thing that they want.
Nope.
But they, so they just stay stuck in there, and it's that blaming cycle of
It is,
blaming
because the
other people.
one thing that they could do that they have, things you can control and things you can't. I want everybody to like me. Not on the menu. Like, good luck. There was Jesus. Not everybody liked Jesus. And if everybody, you know what I mean? If one person could accomplish it, it would have been him. Things you can control and things you can't. And you really have to stay in the zone of things I can control.
That's right.
But everybody, that's a way to avoid responsibility, to try to control things you can't control. Because here's what you can do. You want everybody to like you, and you say, if somebody came in and said, nobody likes me. I mean, there's several, it would depend on the situation. But a lot of it is like, okay, teach me to be more likable. Okay, you can't control whether people are going to like you, but are you being a good friend? Do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do, like, work on those things? Like, if we were talking to somebody and they were just, and this is just a weird example, nobody would come. I'm gonna say nobody, but
Never know.
I want to be a better friend. I'm a terrible friend to people. Tell us about that. Well, I tell everybody's business. Well, yeah, that will definitely will make people not want to be friends with you. So let's work on how to keep confidences.
Yeah.
Like, there's always something that you can control, right? And you want to just get to that idea. So what are you going to do about that? Like, if you have somebody that's constantly just pushing responsibility, or just complaining and of the same thing, not wanting to do anything, and acting like they're on it, acting like I would do something, but there's nothing to be done.
Right.
That don't play.
No. That's always an answer.
Yes. Another thing, I won't be able to commit to fill in the blank. Like, how can you say no to something? I'm sorry, I won't be able to commit to going to the movies. Or I won't be able to commit to this. I won't be able to commit to baking 300 cookies tonight. Like, you can say no. And so many people have a hard time just saying no without telling your whole life story. Somebody doesn't need to hear your whole life story. You need to realize when you are like, you have to, I can't do that because this, because of that. There's nothing wrong with giving context. If you ask me, hey, let's go to the movies tonight, I'm like, I'd love to, but I've got to do this or I got to do that. Nothing wrong with that when you have somebody. But if you are in a nervous state, an anxiety state, or people-pleasing state, and you have to tell everybody your whole life story when they're not even trying to hear your whole life story, like, that's a problem. And you have to learn to keep it simple. I'm sorry, I won't be able to commit to that. The room mom calls you. I need those 300 cookies. Can you do that? I'm sorry, I won't be able to commit to 300. I can do 50. Just understand it's okay to say, I can't do this. And if there's something that you want to do in it, say, but I could do this. Like, nothing wrong with offering an alternative. No, we need 300. Okay. Sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
You hear people do that all the time.
Oh, all the time. Oh, you can't. I see here that you haven't volunteered this year, and we all have to take our turn.
Guilt.
Oh, yeah. Like, just suck you in. Yeah, we see people do that all the time. But no means no.
And to offer what you can do.
Yeah.
But that's not good enough.
That's
okay.
right.
Then you realize you're not in a dialogue anymore. You're in Hunger Games.
It's a good way to put it.
And just remember. And the next one I have here is, thank you for your invitation, but unfortunately I cannot attend. And short and simple, get in, get out. Right?
Yep.
When it's different if it's your bestie, and give more information. Absolutely. But when you are in a situation when somebody's trying to sell you on something, somebody's trying to convince you of something, somebody is trying to push their agenda, any information that you give becomes a point of argument. And you're not trying to furnish extra details just so somebody can just convince you. Have you ever, this is, one day we'll have to do like a argue type like Edna the arguer, or something like that. Because have you ever been talking to somebody and you're like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Well, why can't you do that? I can't do it because I can't get to the grocery store. Oh, I'll go to the grocery store for you. If you can bake the 300 cookies, I'll go to the grocery store for you. And you're like, sometimes somebody just tries to solve every problem that you say no about. And so they're not trying to respect your boundary. They're not trying to hear a no. They're trying to remove all obstacles so they can get a yes. That's not communication.
No.
I'm trying to bulldoze and get my way. And there's only one answer, and that is for you to tell me yes.
Yeah.
Nothing, like I said, nothing wrong with a dialogue and going back and forth, trying to make it work for each person and trying to figure it out. But again, that's your responsibility to figure out whether they're really trying to solve that problem or not. Right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's very jarring for people when you are direct.
Oh my gosh. They were like, they don't even know what to say.
They
don't
just
know
kind
what
of
to do.
stare at you for a second. Like, what? Yeah.
And they'll wait. Like if you just say to somebody, I'm so sorry, I won't be able to do that. They'll just be like, and they will intentionally or unintentionally, but I mean, it's a ploy, make the conversation so uncomfortable so that you give more information so that they can offer a counter offer and no, don't get, understand who you're talking to and what their goal is.
Yeah.
If their goal isn't finding something that works for both of us,
Yeah.
don't give them information.
Yeah. Because with the fixers that do that, I'll just be like, honestly, I just really don't want to do it that way. I just boil it down.
And
I
go
tried
back
to say
to here.
something nice.
What you described is not going to work
Yeah.
for me.
There you go. Yeah. With
Right?
trying to solve all my problems, I really just prefer not to
No.
do it that way.
No.
Yeah.
Immediately no.
Yeah.
But it will, like I said, it will feel like you're being rude. But what's rude is for somebody to keep asking you the same question again and again and again. For them try to push their agenda. They're not trying to find something that's working for both of you.
Yeah.
They are trying to do what? They're trying to push their agenda forward. And that's frustrating. I love this one. I'm not confident that is the best solution. A lot of times we kind of laugh here. Like people will ask, well, that's the right way to do it, isn't it? And you have to be able to say to people, no, I don't think that's the right way. Would you agree with that? Like people will make a statement and they'll make it so exaggerated. Wouldn't you agree? All?
Oh,
Okay.
Okay. Well, we're back.
Who knows? Well, okay. Well, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So I'm not confident this is the best solution. You don't have to buy into what people are saying.
Yes.
Right?
No.
You don't have to agree. You don't have to give your stamp of approval, but understand the different ways people will try to do that.
Well, and that's more of that triangulation. I've experienced that. If you're hanging out with like two people and then they are like trying to solve an opinion between the two of them, they'll pull you in. I
know.
Well, what do you think? Oh.
I think that, again, we go back to that. I think that that's best worked out between the two of you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Another thing to say, thank you for all of your input. I'll need time to process the information out. If you're getting on overload, let's do that. Yeah. Well, since we don't know whether we're live or not, what we're going to do is we'll just maybe finish this next week.
Okay.
Make a 2. This is fun, right?
Yeah.
If you have a particular way you want to understand how to say something, then drop it down in the comments and we'll do part 2 of this. It'll be part 6 of our Growing Up Kingdom Style, but we'll come up with some more phrases.
Yeah.
Let me make a notation. I'm going to notate after this,
Okay.
so we'll know where to pick this back up.
All right.
Well, we don't know if we're live. If not, the camera looks like it's live, but on the software, it looks like maybe not. So let's just pray us out.
All right.
You want to pray us out?
Yes. Lord, thank you so much. Thank you for these solutions, Lord. Thank you for these answers to questions, Lord, that might feel uncomfortable or that protect us and keep us safe, Lord. I just pray that everybody is able to absorb this, Lord, and just remember these words that they've heard today, Lord, that it just seep into their mind, Lord, so that they can just be more powerful in everything that they are and everything that you're doing in their life, so they can just stay on course for what you have for them to do. And we just thank you, Father, for this time, and we pray that you bless everybody here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We'll see you next week.